Welcome to the Waffle Flower channel. This is Nicole and it's in the details. Today I've got a couple of cards that feature the layering marble stamp set for the background, which creates these gorgeous color layered marble effects. Really realistic looking. I think they're just stunning. And then I'm doing a little faux stained glass with the Pretty Butterflies, one of the dies from this die collection. I'm going to start with the backgrounds here with the layering marble stamp set. What is awesome about this stamp set is that it is got a letter and a number, so you know exactly what to use. I'm going to start with the large B1 stamp and I'll show you the whole process, and then I'm going to speed it up as I work through the rest of the panel. This is an A2 sized panel, so I'm going to be covering the whole thing. I am starting with my lightest color as suggested here on the stamp sheet with the Simon Says Stamp Fog ink. This is a really nice light gray ink. I went for kind of the realistic looking marble effect. I wanted the grays running through this white background. I'm using the Misty, which makes it great if you want to ink it up a couple of times in case some of the areas don't get stamped as well as others. I inked almost everything up twice before and stamped it twice just because I really wanted a very solid looking background. Next, I'm going to take the B2 piece. What is great is you can kind of find little places in these stamps that match up. There are other videos that show you can mark right on your stamp sheet little cheats, which is a fantastic idea. I highly recommend doing that as well if that will help you. But there are little areas that will help you see exactly how to line these up. If you look at them and kind of lay them out straight, you will definitely see those little areas that line up from before. The next color I used was the Simon Says Stamp Smoke ink. And finally, I am taking the B3 piece, which is going to be the smallest piece, and I want this to be the gold. Now, I kind of thought the Delicata gold ink might work without having to do any embossing, but instead, I found it to just look kind of yellow. I did not want to start all the way over, so I instead inked up that image again with Versamark, stamped it with Versamark, and then heat set it with gold embossing powder. And I liked that a lot better. I thought it looked a lot more realistic that way. I'm going to continue to do this for all of the rest of the images. I am doing 2 cards, so I'm inking both of them up at the same time. So I did step 1, B1, B2, B3, and then I'm moving on. Now to speed it up even more, I'm going to go ahead and lay out the number 1 pieces for the A1, C1, and D1 and stamp all of the base color at the same time, then all of the mid-tone color, and finally all of the gold. This is going to speed it up a lot by doing it this way. And my thinking is, while you already have all of the supplies out, while you have the stamps on a stamp positioner tool, go ahead and create multiples of this card design. You could even do lots of different colorful marble backgrounds and have them on hand to create different cards, because it's great to just stamp a bunch of them all at once. That gold really does give it that fantastic marble look. Before I did the embossing, I did use a powder tool to try to help keep some of that gold embossing powder just to the stamped areas. Some of it did migrate. It didn't bother me a lot for this project because it is a marble looking background and I don't mind some of those gold flecks. But if it does bother you, you might let the paper dry just a little bit more in between the second and that third color. I think the reason I had so much trouble with it sticking was it was sticking to where I stamped the second layer color, the smoke ink. I probably just didn't give it quite enough time to dry. It does dry fast because that was a dye ink, but still I think I just didn't give it quite long enough. I was working pretty quickly to get through all of this. The marble backgrounds are really starting to take shape now. You can definitely see how awesome this stamp set is. I have to admit, I've had this for quite a while, and it's one of those that I was super intrigued by. I had to have it. And then it sat there because I was a little intimidated by it. And now I already have an idea for another card using this in a completely different way that I can't wait to share with you guys. It is one of those that I think will get used over and over again because you can create your own marble looking backgrounds so easily. It's just a fantastic stamp set. I really like it. I can't say enough great about it. I am filling in these last little areas here, making sure to stamp off the edge of the panel so it looks like this is coming from a larger sheet of paper, and you've just trimmed it down. I will show you there is one corner that I felt was just had a little too much white space after I get this filled in. So I will flip this around and go ahead and fill in that last corner here in a second. You can always use a small paintbrush to remove those gold embossing flakes that aren't where they're supposed to be. So here is that last little corner. And I'm just using the A1 stamp. It does not have any layering pieces, so it's perfect for just filling that in. There are my two backgrounds. Now I am going to show you, there is a spot that has less gold in it. That is where I'm going to put my butterfly. I simply flipped it that way so that more of the gold is visible when you have that butterfly in place. You could put it any way you wanted to. For me, I want as much of that gold showing as possible. Now, the layering marble stamp set doesn't have a greeting, so you can do any greeting with this background. This is simply a background building stamp set. I grabbed the Heartfelt Thanks greeting from the Lotus Stamp Set, and I am going to stamp Heartfelt Thanks on both of these card backgrounds with a black dye ink. Starting with Heartfelt first, instead of lining both of the greetings up at one time, I'm going to stamp Heartfelt and then I'll go in and stamp Thanks. I did this because I think it's really hard to get the stamps really close to each other, as close as I want them to be, stamping them at the same time. They have a little bit of a ledge around them, so it's really hard to get them kind of up close to one another. When that happens, I generally stamp the first part of the greeting and then I'll go back and stamp the second part. So I've lined up the word thanks now, and I'm going to go back through and stamp thanks next to Heartfelt on both cards. So pretty. I think that the font from the Heartfelt, either of the words Heartfelt from the Lotus Stamp Set, would look really pretty and work really nicely with this kind of elegant background. Once the greeting is stamped, I'm ready to finish off with my faux stained glass butterfly. This is one of my favorite techniques. It's super easy and it gives stunning results. What I'm going to do is grab a piece of fun foam and place some Stick It on both sides. This is going to make both sides of the fun foam super sticky. And this is going to create a dimensional base for my butterfly. I want that butterfly to be dimensional. So once I have the Stick It on both sides of the fun foam, to make sure it's really good and adhered to the fun foam, I like to run it back and forth through my Big Shot. So just run it through. This is going to secure the Stick It to the fun foam so it's nice and secure. Then I'm going to remove the backing paper from one side, and I've got a piece of gold foil cardstock that I'm going to attach there. Then I can take one of the Pretty Butterflies dies and run this through my die cutting machine to die cut some gold foil outlines. This is going to be dimensional. You could use it as is, or you can do like I did and create this faux stained glass effect. I like to run it through back and forth 3-4 times because it is dimensional. It's going through cardstock and fun foam. It does die cut beautifully. However, I like to make sure it's really good in die cut, so I usually run it back and forth a few times. Okay, you want to keep the little pieces just to make sure you don't need them all. for this butterfly, there's going to be a couple pieces on each side that you are going to want to keep. They're kind of freestanding pieces, I like to call them. But even though all of these little areas have die cut, and they've die cut really well, they went through the whole thing, because it's sticky and it's the foam, they tend to like to stick. So I like to use a piercing tool to pop those out. And then once everything is out, you can go ahead and attach that butterfly right to the card. This would be beautiful as is. These are those little freestanding pieces from the butterfly that I was talking about that you're going to want to keep. I'm just using that little negative area there, or the positive area, to line it up. Make sure the backing paper is off those little pieces. It wasn't, and that's why I was having such a hard time getting it to stick. So I filled that in, and there's what it looks like. To make it even more secure and to give it that glossy finish on the inside, I'm going to use glossy accents to fill in all of those open areas. I have a fine tip applicator on my glossy accents, which makes this so much easier because some of those areas are really teeny tiny. You could also use some Nouveau crystal drops in whatever color you want if you wanted to have more of a colorful stained glass. I was trying to kind of keep with the elegant feel of this card and didn't want to introduce a whole bunch of different colors, but I think this would be stunning with some kind of the translucent jewel Nouveau crystal drops, or Nouveau jewel drops, I guess I want to say. I think those would be absolutely stunning in this same technique. So you want to fill this all in. The great thing about glossy accents, it's going to dry pretty quickly, probably within about an hour or so. And it'll have a nice glass-like effect. And it's just super pretty to look at. Carefully going around all of these little gold areas, filling in any of those little tiny areas. Once that's done, I'm going to take some Nouveau crystal drops in silver lining, pale gold, and oyster gray, and add little drops all around the design to finish it off and give it a little bit of interest. If any of your drops kind of have that pointy tip to them, just lightly tap on the back of the paper and it's going to kind of tap that shape out, or the point out, and help not really flatten them, but it'll help them round a little bit better. I always like to kind of just tap the back of my paper. And I'm adding these drops all over. These look nice with the same colors, or with the colors rather, that I used for the marble effect. I'll go ahead and add both of these panels to a top fold card base. Once they are adhered, I'm going to take a 1/2 inch corner rounder and round all 4 corners to finish up these elegant marble background cards with faux stained glass butterfly accents. Thanks for joining me today for these cards featuring the layering marble stamp set and pretty butterflies dies. For more product information, please visit waffleflower.com. Follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook for more creative ideas.